Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Always About People show. My name is Chris Allen. I'm your host, and we're back for another great topic related to people, the workplace, to leadership. Today, we're talking about the fact that integrity is foundational. I know many of you are probably thinking right now, I've heard about integrity before. I know integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. But we want to go a layer deeper today. We want to talk about how rooted integrity is in the development of trust in an organization and in relationships. So I'm excited about today's topic. Again, we hope that on this show that we bring you relevant, we bring you topics that really are felt needs in what you're dealing with today on a daily basis. You know, for many of us, as we watch the news and as we see what's going on around the world in politics and in a number of issues, we realize that integrity is at the center of so much of what we're talking about. And I thought we would just cover this idea on how foundational integrity is in the development of trust inside of relationships and in organizations and in leadership teams. So I want to start with an example. I'll start with the example of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Do you know the story of the Leaning Tower of Pisa? My guess is you may not fully understand the story of this incredible structure. Built in the 12th century, by the way, that's a long time ago. It was started with a 3-meter foundation. Again, when you think of meters, at least in the United States, a meter is about a yard. And so this foundation for a rather large and tall structure is really not that deep. So with a 3-meter foundation, this structure was built. By the time it got to just the second level, it had already started leaning, but the builders of this structure continued to build. And they built all the way to their current height as this thing was leaning from the very beginning. Originally built to be a bell tower to warn the citizens of this community of impending danger and warfare. The interior of this structure contains absolutely nothing. There is nothing inside the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and also originally intended to contain some bells at the top. The bells were even taken out of this structure. So a completely hollow structure now is really just a historical site, which was restored even in the 1990s through counterweights and cables to hold it structure upright. Everything was taken out of the interior for fear that this thing might fall. In fact, another interesting point is that in the path of this tower, everybody was removed from condominiums and apartments and other housing structures. In the event that this tower were to fall, they didn't want it to create damage on anyone in its path. I believe that the Leaning Tower of Pisa provides a really interesting background for this idea that really integrity is foundational. What's interesting is that 57% of Fortune 500 companies have integrity as one of their stated values, or is at least in their mission statement. It's by far the most common word listed across the Fortune 500. And yet most of us would say the Fortune 500 is not really known for integrity. So what's the issue? Integrity is seemingly used in a list of values, but it really isn't that important when it comes to behaviors. So we set up integrity as something that we all want to emulate. Our leaders put integrity in the list of values. We have it as one of the most important things that we could follow because we understand that it builds trust. And yet very few people are held to a level of accountability when it comes to behavior. Behavior in a way of integrity. Integrity in a way of behavior. When most of us think of integrity, we think of these massive failures of integrity, like the Enron story, where a stock price can go from the mid 90s to just cents on the dollar, and profitability statements can be overstated by over $500 million. Most of us think of these massive issues of integrity, and yet most of the time in our organizations, it's not these massive issues of integrity. It's the small little lapses. It's the small little chipping away at integrity that dramatically influences the culture of an organization or the foundation of an organization. Integrity, defined by the dictionary, is the adherence to moral and ethical principles, soundness of moral character, honesty. It's the state of being whole, entire, or undiminished. To preserve the integrity of the empire, it's a sound, unimpaired, or perfect condition, like the integrity of even a ship's hull or of a product. I think what's interesting is most of us are aware of products that we have had at one time or another that have lacked integrity. We've also understood people on our teams or in leadership who have lacked integrity. We can look at historical figures. We can look at political figures. We can go right down the road into religious figures who have lacked integrity. But again, most of what we think of when we think of integrity are these massive lapses, these moral failures of integrity. And yet I believe that it's much deeper. It's much more foundational. If we go back to even the illustration of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, what happens is when the foundation isn't deep enough, a structure can be built on top that ends up being hollow, useless. And really, in many ways, if the foundation lacks integrity, it's a dangerous structure that has to be propped up by counterweights and cables, even going to the full extent of removing people in the wake of this lack of integrity. If this structure falls, get out of the way. Let's get people out of the way. Leaders function as the immune systems of the institutions they lead, not because they ward off enemies, but because they supply the ingredients for the system's integrity. Edwin Friedman, in his book, A Failure of Nerve, talks about the need for integrity in leadership, because leaders really do function as the immune system for their organizations. So I think it's about time that leaders, that you and myself, we think of the importance of our integrity as the foundation for the structures that we lead or that we manage, or the families that we lead, or the organizations that we participate in. Oftentimes, what we hear from most of our clients across the country is that it's the small little lapses of integrity. It's not the big ones. It's not the Enron stories that create the most damage. It's the small little things that chip away at the integrity of most organizations. I believe it's the way that we talk about one another inside of our organizations. I believe that the greatest failure of integrity, the foundational failure of integrity, is how we talk about the people around us, our peers, our coworkers, our colleagues on a daily basis. I believe that the greatest failure of integrity in most organizations is how we honor one another in relationships. In our work as an organization, always about people, we understand the complexities, but also the real failure of integrity when it comes to relationships. I think the greatest issue of integrity is that if I have an issue with you, Instead of coming to you directly, in some ways it's easier for me to just talk about you behind your back, to say bad things about you, to gain an audience, to gain approval from friends. In my own insecurity, I'll talk poorly about you, lacking integrity, but in sort of a sad way. I'll feel better about myself if I can talk poorly about you. And so recently I found in some John Maxwell material, and it's also a little bit controversial as to where this really actually came from, but these 10 rules for respect, I think, are a foundational level for integrity. If you could follow these 10 rules for respect in your relationships and in your family, in your organizations as a leader, I think it would dramatically improve the integrity in whatever organization or culture that you're a part of. I believe it would build trust in a greater way than you've ever seen. And so these 10 rules for respect are pretty simple, but I think are really important. I would encourage you to either write them down, to jot some notes, to remember these, because I think they'll dramatically impact whatever group, whatever team, whatever structure, whatever culture you're a part of. Number one, if you have a problem with me, come to me privately. The worst thing you can do is to address it publicly. Number two, if I have a problem with you, I'll come to you privately, one-on-one. Number three, if someone has a problem with me and comes to you, send them to me, and I promise that I'll do the same for you. It's much more effective to deal with this stuff in a one-on-one personal way than to deal with it through other people or to deal with it publicly. Number four, if someone consistently will not come to me, say, let's go see him together. I am sure he will see us about this, and I'll do the same for you. Number five, be careful how you interpret me. I'd rather do that too. On matters that are unclear, do not feel pressured to interpret my feelings or thoughts. It is easy to misinterpret intentions. Number six, I will be careful how I interpret you. I'll believe the best. Number seven, if it's confidential, don't tell. If you or anyone else comes to me in confidence, I won't tell unless the person is going to harm himself or herself, the person is going to physically harm someone else, or a child has been physically or sexually abused. I expect the same from you. Number eight, I do not read unsigned letters or notes. The worst thing that we can do in an organization is believe they said. They, who is they? Is they one person, two people, three people, four people? And unsigned letters, notes represent the they that really doesn't have any sort of measurable to it. Is it one person? Is it a majority? How about you just come to me and talk to me instead of trying to build up some sort of group against me or build up your own self-esteem? Number nine, I do not manipulate. I will not be manipulated. Do not let others manipulate you. Do not let others try to manipulate me through you. 10 rules for respect. And number 10, when in doubt, just say it. Ask the question. If I can answer it without misrepresenting or breaking a confidence, I will. Just come to me. Ask the question rather than assuming. I've said it so many times before that in the absence of information, all of us will tend to make up stories and build our own narratives. It's better to just come to me and ask me. I'd be happy to share with you as much information as I can share with you. The issue is that sometimes I can't share everything with you, and I need you to understand that. So these 10 rules for respect provide a great framework for you to build integrity at the foundational level. Because as I said just a few minutes ago, I believe that integrity, it's not the Enron stories. It's not these major lapses or failures of integrity or moral failures. Most of the time, it's these small little issues that come up in teams and in organizations and between relationships in the way that we talk about one another. So, the 10 rules for respect provide an incredible foundation to build integrity, which ultimately leads to trust in your organization, in your culture, in your family, or in any of the relationships that you have. So I thought I would just share with you a few thoughts around integrity, ways to keep integrity for yourself and within an organization and within a culture. Number one, model consistency of character. Social conformity is a real thing. I would just encourage you, if you're a leader, model consistency. Consistency compounds. And the more consistent you can be in your character, it will compound, it will build trust with your team members. Next, employ honest communication. Just be as honest and transparent as you possibly can with what you are allowed to share in that moment. Be honest. Next, value transparency. Just be vulnerable, be transparent. People appreciate it. It's about your integrity, but ultimately it builds trust. Exemplify humility. Be humble. See yourself for who you really are in the context of a great big world. Humility really does affect integrity, and it's foundational. Demonstrate your support of others. Gosh, just praise other people, support other people. You're here to serve. So much of integrity is about you leaning over, leaning down, picking up, and serving those around you. Fulfill your promises. Your word is your word. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, and really do fulfill your promises because, again, integrity builds trust. Embrace an attitude of service. Serve other people. Be a servant leader. Take care of the needs of other people. Put their needs before yours. Treat them the way that you would want to be treated. And encourage two-way participation with the people you influence. In other words, ask them for their opinions. Ask them to participate. Ask them to collaborate in solving problems, coming up with solutions, innovating. It's a matter of your own integrity. It's a matter of your humility, and it is foundational. We want to build a structure that can stand up straight, that can stand up tall, that doesn't begin leaning at the second layer, that isn't hollow and void of really any purpose, and that in many ways isn't dangerous to the people around us. Have integrity. Do the little things. It's the little things that actually develop your integrity. The little things are the things that establish trust between people. It's the little things like being vulnerable, speaking truth, giving great feedback, making people feel like they're valuable. All these little things can do a lot to establish your credibility and your integrity at the foundational level. The principle of predecision is pretty simple. It's the fact that you actually have the power to decide right now that you want to be a person of integrity, that you want to be a person that builds a foundation of your own leadership, of your own character on integrity. And on that place of integrity, yes, it does involve the decisions you make. Yes, it does involve the little things, but it really involves the way that you speak and talk about other people. It involves your humility. It involves the way that you care for other people and serve them as a servant leader. Integrity is foundational. The golden rule really does apply. Do unto others as you would want done unto yourself. Again, this idea of treating people the way that you would want to be treated that really is integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking. I hope that that would equal doing unto others what you would want done unto yourself. Because, again, each of us would want to be treated fairly. Each of us would want to be respected. Each of us would want to be talked about in a positive way, in a respectful manner. I know that from our work with many organizations across the country, the main issue that I see with integrity is how we speak about others behind their backs, how we speak about others when they're not present. And so, my challenge to you, integrity is foundational, but the foundation is rooted in how you speak about other people. I want to encourage you, even this week, that you would speak positively, that you would be an encourager, that you would be a person that builds up the people around you. You know, in our culture today, our society today, very few people find ways of being built up through other people. It feels like most of our society is trying to just tear people down. Could you be a leader? Could you be a colleague? Could you be a friend? Could you be a relationship that actually builds up the people around you, that encourages them, that spurs them on to great things, that helps them become the most that they can be? I really do believe that that is foundational, that that is really what integrity is about. So the question is, do you want to be more like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which was built with a 3-meter foundation that over a couple hundred years, starting in the 12th century, a structure could be built that is now completely hollow, void of anything, including the bells that once were the purpose of this building? That this building would now lean at a degree that makes it unsafe and has to be propped up by counterweights and cables, including the removal of anybody in the fall of this building. When you think about the integrity of a person, the same might be true. How can we so establish a foundation in our own lives that the structure that can be built on this foundation could be one that encourages the people around us? It is one that serves people around us, that builds people up around us. Not one that's void of anything, that doesn't really even serve a purpose, and that everybody's trying to move out of the way to clear the way in case we fall. What a travesty. I really hope that you'll take this idea of integrity seriously, and that you'll understand that the foundation of your integrity is so integral into your leadership, your character, and the trust that you have with others, and ultimately that other people have with you. So really, I hope that you'll take this seriously. I hope that you'll think about this. I hope that you will speak differently about other people, even this week. Whether you're watching this live, or you're watching it later, or you're watching it into the future, my hope is that you will stop and think about the foundation that you are establishing in your own life as an individual, that you will use your words and the way that you project your integrity in a way that builds trust, establishes relationships, doesn't tear them down. You will speak positively about people, and that you'll remember those 10 rules for respect. And that more often than not, you'll go directly to a person, and that you'll deal with situations directly with those people, honoring them and respecting them in a way that is full of integrity. That's practical. It's needed. We need more of it in our society, and that's what we're all about. The Always About People show was established to just make sure that we provide practical, insightful wisdom and insights for people as they lead and as they manage relationships and as they build organizations and companies. So we promised you that we would cover issues and topics and felt needs that are relevant to what we're hearing in the marketplace. This is one of them: integrity. Our hope is that you would see integrity as foundational to your leadership. I hope you took one thing away from today's show. Thank you for joining us live on the Always About People show. Again, I'm your host, Chris Allen, and we're just so appreciative of you joining with us every week. Whether you're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, we're just glad you're here. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, like, subscribe. You'll get notifications for upcoming and future episodes, and we hope that you'll come back and join us. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next time.